What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to Nerdy for 30, the show where comedian Tim Keck and I nerd out about things that we have seen lately. Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I watched Black Widow. I really liked it. I had a great time watching it. I've heard that wasn't everybody's takeaway, so I'm excited to see how we differ. But man, I'm excited to talk about this movie that I thought really after watching all of these Marvel TV shows and talking about Marvel TV shows, it was nice to return to a movie, which I think is really what Marvel does best, and the pacing's better and just everything. But I'm excited to talk about it, Kevin, especially with our special guest.
You know her. You love her. She's coming to us again after the Power Rangers sequence that we did back in, I think, May. Fan favorite guest, Lauren Moore. Lauren, thank you for being here. How are you?
Doing great, Kev. How are you?
I'm good. You know, I think I would be a little bit better if Black Widow had been a better movie.
Wow.
I'm somewhere in the middle, but leaning more towards Kevin, I think, just for my pure expectations that I had for this. I've wanted this ever since she first showed up. And so it's been a very long wait for me. Also, COVID making it take even longer. So I've been waiting for this for a very long time. And I think, yeah, it didn't meet my expectations, but I still had a good time.
Maybe this is where we differ then, because I had very, very low expectations of this movie. Black Widow is not a character that has ever really spoken to me or that I've thought was like particularly compelling or interesting. I think she was like really introduced initially as just a femme fatale, like I'm a hot girl who's a spy and like this is it. And then she kept showing up and they're like, oh, we should add some we need to flush out this character a little bit more, like turn this 2-dimensional person into like more of a 3-dimensional person. And they do. It seems like they do that the most. We get the most character development for the Black Widow like in this movie. And it still doesn't even feel like a Black Widow movie to me for some reason. What is it about Black Widow that you were like excited for this movie about, or like what were you expecting from it?
See, I disagree. I don't think there was hardly any character development at all. She seemed very stoic and really didn't seem to have much of a personality. Like I was going into this hoping that we'd get to know more about her character, what makes her tick. And it was just kind of like, I don't know. She didn't feel like the main character to me. And I wanted to see this because it was like we were getting all these movies for all the other Avengers. And it was like, excuse me, we're forgetting one. And like, I would like to see it because she's a woman. Like, I want to see a story about the only woman involved in the Avengers. And then, you know, of course, they've added more since, but we still haven't had that for any of the female characters. So I was really felt long overdue. And then we got Captain Marvel, obviously, but that was kind of like she was new. She was being introduced. Like this was somebody that we've seen in movie after movie and everybody else kind of got their due. And she didn't. So I was excited to see it. And I wanted to see, especially the first thing that really got me interested, or I guess not the first, but one of the things that got me really interested was in Age of Ultron, when she has that like flashback. And that's like the first taste of where she's come from. And like when she was in Russia and training to be a spy and kind of what was going on there. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would make such a good movie to know like what she went through and what brought her here. And clearly she's gone through a significant change to go from like hard Russian spy to somebody who's like fighting for America and supporting, you know, pretty holistic, morally good values. So like, at least according to American ideals. So yeah, I wanted to know like what caused that shift in her. But I still don't really know.
Kevin, what about you? Expectations for Black Widow?
I honestly thought this movie looked fucking great. My expectations were pretty high. Loved everything I was seeing in the trailers. Loved the cast that they'd assembled. I definitely went into it thinking like, yeah, they're going to fucking rock this movie. I think my expectations, though, and I think this is something Lauren will agree with, my expectations were that this movie was going to be a lot more grounded. I was expecting something more in the vein of Captain America, the Winter Soldier, or even, frankly, Civil War, where when you look at the movies they've done for the different Avengers previously, one of the things they've really shined at is changing the stakes, changing almost the genre of these movies to match the abilities of the characters. The Captain America stuff is going to be a little bit more grounded because he can't fly to space like Thor can. So I expected it to be in the same vein, maybe even a little bit more grounded than you would get out of Captain America movie, because Captain America is a super soldier and Natasha does not have any extra human abilities. So I thought we were getting like a real gritty, like a Bourne movie or like a Bond movie or something really low to the ground. And instead, holy shit, this was insane. This movie was fucking insane. She falls probably a collective 20,000 feet in this movie.
That's so funny because the first thing I said to Kevin when the credits rolled, I leaned over and I was like, wow, that was really grounded. Guys are just like, oh my God. And then I also told Kevin that seeing how many times she failed to die when she should have in this movie, I don't believe she died in Endgame. Like, she should still be alive based on all that we saw in this movie.
She fell way further in this movie than she did when she was in the fucking Soul
and hit
Stone magic
a lot
place.
more things on the way down. I mean, her body, like, ting, 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 ting.
I think a perfect encapsulation of it in this is there's the scene where the Taskmaster is chasing down Natasha and Yelena, and Taskmaster shoots a bomb that blows up the minivan they're in, and then the minivan flips over, skids, hits some more shit, flips down into a subway station, skids down the stairs and slides into the subway station. And then Natasha and Yelena just get out of the minivan and are fine.
Well, they wore their seatbelt, Kev.
Fuck?
They put their seatbelts on. There was a very clear line before that saying, put on your seatbelt.
Yeah.
So,
It saved them.
Yeah. And they put away, they were texting and driving. They stopped doing that. So there's just some like pub PSAs about like safe driving. This might be a good segue into our recurring my forced recurring movie segment, Money Well Spent.
Yeah.
Black Widow budget, $200 million for this movie, which for some perspective that puts it in the same class as Black Panther, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, Iron Man 2, Civil War. The Avengers movies are like in the 400 millions, but most of these solo movies are around like 150. So they put like an extra 50 mil into this movie to give it like the Black Panther treatment or the Guardians treatment, where both of those movies are kind of like building worlds, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel like that is money well spent as far as Black Widow?
Fuck no. Lauren?
I mean, that makes a lot of sense given all the action and all the explosions. And I mean, we traveled the world a lot in this, but no, but that's not what I wanted from this movie.
This movie should have been a $50 million movie.
Oh, I feel like I did not even have that thought coming in. At no point did I think it was going to be like Jason. I didn't think it was going to be Bourne Identity. I thought it was going to be more Winter Soldier. But I really liked all these like big action scenes. Like, why not? Like the whole thing at the base where they've got the storm coming and she's like hanging on the helicopter and fighting people. I'm like, this is fun. The fight at the end where she's like falling through the air and like doing all this stuff. I'm not sure it makes sense for the Black Widow to be doing this, but these are awesome fights.
They were.
I'm not sure if I want Scarlett Johansson to be the one doing them. But
exactly,
the sets are awesome. I mean, it's so cool. They did all this really cool stuff. Can we talk about Scarlett Johansson? Do you guys enjoy Scarlett Johansson? Do you think, I think maybe going back to my initial like femme fatale thing is like Scarlett Johansson makes a lot of sense as a very serious, like sexy spy. But I don't feel like Scarlett Johansson is fun at all. She has this weird into Colin Jost quality about her. That's like
a red flag, if you will.
A gigantic red flag that's like, oh, if you like this, then you just don't like things. You know, Black Widow is the kind of person who thinks Colin Jost is funny or interesting and thus must be such a vapid individual themselves that they're just grasping onto whatever, like, you know, white frat boy they can find at a party. So she has this quality of like, I don't know, like maybe Scarlett Johansson rolls up and everyone's excited at first and then we all sit down and then she doesn't like speak at all or something. I don't know. She just has this like kind of buzzkill quality to her now in these scenes with like her family where like Florence Pugh is just kicking ass and taking names and this is a Florence Pugh movie. And if she isn't in this movie, I think I'm having a hard time watching Scarlett Johansson by herself.
I agree. And one thing that I like in comparison, like comparing the two, in the way that they approach like action scenes, and granted, I know Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson, she's supposed to be more experienced. She's older. But I love that every time that Florence Pugh's character was like about to get into a fight, you see her collect herself and almost kind of give herself a mini pep talk in her head. Like you can watch her kind of like, oh, okay. And then she'll turn and like she braces herself, and it just makes it feel so much more real, like what she's about to do. Or like when she's like dragging one of the like people she just beat up and she's like pulling and you can feel her struggle because he's heavy. Like that's the stuff that I really appreciate because it just makes it more real, where it's just, it feels like in this movie in particular, Natasha could just kind of do anything. And it's like, but she's supposed to be human. So that really took me out of it.
Scarlett Johansson always acts like Florence Pugh did when she was brainwashed.
Yeah. 100%.
That's true.
The Black Widow's base reality is everyone else being brainwashed, you know? That's a great point about Florence Pugh. I didn't even really think about that, about her steadying herself, but she's basically been doing all of these assassinations and committing all of these crimes while brainwashed. So this is maybe the first time that she's actually had to fight of her own free will. And the idea that she's like struggling to deal with that is a super compelling idea. Like she knows how to fight. She knows how to kill people. But this is the first time she's not being forced to do so. That's super cool.
It is, but I don't think they gave it nearly enough time. So I think here's what happened with this movie. I think Marvel had this idea and they were so fucking stoked that they came up with this, is that the Black Widow movie is the first movie for Scarlett Johansson, but also the first movie for Florence Pugh. So they're getting two Black Widow movies out of one Black Widow movie. And I think that worked against the best interests of both of those possible movies. I think obviously we should have gotten a Black Widow movie for Scarlett Johansson a lot earlier. And then I think this one works as like a Black Widow 2. Yeah. And maybe we see a little bit more of Florence Pugh's character, because as it stands, we don't get enough of either of them. Neither one of them really feels like the main character. I don't know where the center of this story is.
Well, and that reminds me, I was thinking about this earlier. What I think I wanted from a Black Widow movie was, like you said, if it had been sooner, because I want to see, they always reference what happened in Budapest. So I want to see her and Hawkeye together. I don't want to see the games that they played still on the wall. Like I want to see them go through that mission, especially because it's referenced so much. So, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of funny to me that they spend so much time telling us how she got a vest that I didn't even know she wore later. Yeah. And like that, here's how she got this jet. I know you guys are wondering how she picked up the other Avengers. Here's how she got the jet. Like, I don't care about that. The biggest one is Budapest. And then they just kind of like, they always just kind of reference it, but they don't really tell us what happened. So that's what I was hoping.
We saw the fucking box of hair dye.
Yeah.
It was an origin story for her look in Infinity War.
Yep. Which I feel like is a failure to her character in general. It's like, she's so much about how she looks, and it's like, but I want to know what's in her. And I think that maybe that is what you're talking about, Tim, where maybe Scarlett Johansson just, if she hasn't had the opportunity to, or for whatever reason, she started as one character and they're trying to like retroactively make her more, but there's just so little to her still. And that's why I want more, but it's just like, they can't give it to me. But yeah, why? How did she color her hair? Did she see a stylist? Did she do it herself out of a box? Let us know. Like, whatever.
That part's pretty weak. I still just think it's such a bummer that Marvel doesn't have like I guess they do, and other series they do, but Black Widow is not like a fleshed out character, and it sucks that they don't have another like. I don't know. I feel like I'd be more excited about a Gamora solo movie than I would about a Black Widow solo movie. I'd be more excited about a Wasp solo movie than I would about a Black Widow movie, just because those characters have some depth, you know? And Black Widow's hanging out with like the Hulk, whose ability is inherently like a vice, right? Like he's got all this rage that he's trying to control. Thor, his whole character is built around whether or not he's worthy of anything. Captain America is this like scrawny kid who grows up and is desperate to serve his country and is all of a sudden strong enough. And now he's like even more like outclassed by like bigger and badder people. And there's like patriotism and like what's right and wrong and all of this morality play. I mean, Iron Man is just the most awesome, complex character, just kicking butt all the time. And then it's like, and Hawkeye is the same problem, which is like, so what's Hawkeye? Like, what does Hawkeye do? Like, how do you describe Hawkeye in a compelling way? He's a spy with a family. Like I don't know. There's nothing interesting about him in the movies.
Well, that's kind of an issue too, because the movie version of Hawkeye is very different from any of the comic versions of Hawkeye. And I think they've created a problem for themselves where all the comic versions of Hawkeye have had something that they can kind of fall back onto. But the movie one, I mean, they're just in uncharted territory, and maybe the show will be able to do something interesting with that. But like, I basically just treat Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye like a completely different, completely new character. And he's fucking fine. But like the interesting stuff with Hawkeye in the comics comes from pretty much what you described with Captain America, where he's just completely outclassed by everybody else. And he's just a really good marksman, but that's the only real thing about him. They touch on some of those same themes in this movie where like Florence Pugh has the great line about like, yeah, I doubt that God from space needs to take an ibuprofen after a fight. That's the kind of stuff that we deal with Hawkeye in the comics. That's like what the Hawkeye solo series delves into. Here it's just, it's like, okay, maybe she needs to take an ibuprofen after a fight, but for some reason we see that she can get smacked in the head 15 times, slam her own head into a desk to break her own nose, reset her own nose later.
But her teeth remain flawless. No broken teeth. Because at the end of the day, she has to look beautiful.
It's ridiculous. It's this. So Tim, have you seen the TV show Killing Eve?
No, I know of it, but I have not seen it.
You gotta watch this show. This show fucking rules. It's so good. But Killing Eve does a really good job where there is one of the characters in the show is this international assassin that Lauren and I have talked about while watching the show before would be a perfect template for a Black Widow movie. Absolutely a perfect template for a Black Widow movie. And when they show her in fights, it's not that she's always, better at fighting than everybody else, but she's really gritty and she sticks with it. And you see her get the shit kicked out of her. And like, she's, this bombshell, attractive spy, all that, yada, yada, yada.
But it's not about that.
Right. And they'll show her again, get the shit kicked out of her. I can specifically think of her, I think, with like a big black eye and like, I think bleeding from her mouth at one point. They will get gritty with it. So it's kind of insane that we get to see Scarlett being tough, but it's kind of neutered by the fact that we don't see any of the consequences of the fights that she's in.
Mm-hmm. No blood, no scrapes. I think Florence is the only one that really gets injured, like except for at the very end when she breaks her nose. But again, no blood, no scratches. She gets bruises on her body. That scene felt weird to me. Like very voyeuristic. Let's look at all her bruises. Is that like making up for the fact that they didn't do any of that? I don't know, but I didn't like that.
Also, I'll throw this in with beefs for like voyeuristic choices. A lot of butt shots in this movie.
Oh, there always are with her.
But it's weird where it's like, it feels really, I know that it's an issue with Hollywood, but it feels really strange to be having this strong female protagonist and still be sexualizing her in that way. And it's like, I don't need that. We don't need that. Like, why is that happening?
Yeah.
Do you think that's gratuitous compared, or is that just like a Marvel thing? Like we get in Captain America, we get like shots of Chris Evans, like holding a helicopter, like flexing like this is not how you would hold a helicopter. He's purely just doing this to like flex. We get shots of like every dude with his shirt off. Do you think this is like, do you think women are treated differently by Marvel, or do you think it's like a generally exploitive thing?
I think there's a difference in what you just described. Is I do think that there's obviously like a attraction level to that, but I think the point is more to show their strength, less than their like sexual appeal. Whereas with women, it doesn't have the strength feature. It's just for like sexual appeal.
That's the perfect rebuttal to that. That is so true. If you see Chris Hemsworth without his shirt, I as a man am thinking, yo, this dude is strong as fuck. But when I see Black Widow's butt, I'm just like, wow, Colin Jost is a lucky guy, I guess.
Still baffled.
Oh, man.
All the other characters get hurt. Rachel Weisz gets hurt. David Harbour gets hurt.
Mhm.
They're both crushing it. The other three like leads in this are so awesome. I thought I really enjoyed them.
I did love them, but I struggled with like I loved them in the beginning. I really loved the beginning scene when they're young. And I really was like, this movie's going to be so good. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I'm finally getting what I waited so long for. And then the next time we see all these characters, which I was anxious to get them back, when they finally do, they're so different. And I get why, but it just was really jarring for me to be like, oh gosh, what I saw at the beginning wasn't really them. And now I have to relearn these new characters. And it was just confusing.
There's a way to frame it and get it right, I think, because obviously, like they were undercover Russian spies. So there's going to be that dynamic of they're different than they were depicted as being when they were in this family. But there's also, we got a hint of it with the thing where Florence Pugh's, the little girl version of Florence Pugh gets hurt and Scarlett Johansson, it's kind of like, hey, she hurt herself, deal with this to the mom. Like we got a hint of like, maybe they're not a normal family, but then the dynamic of them having dinner together and the stuff around the house kind of made it seem like they did kind of have an affinity for each other. And then later in the movie, we grapple with that and we have like, oh, we weren't really a family, but we were really a family, but we weren't really a family, but we were really a family. Just fucking lock into it.
Yeah.
Lock into one or the other. Both are fine, but you can't have both.
I think the both is what makes it interesting, though. I think it is interesting. The idea that like we are spies. This is a job. This is a fake thing. We are going through the motions with this, but like we're like still, we're kissing. I mean, the parents are like definitely like sleeping together. We're like taking the kids to whatever fairs and stuff. We're teaching them stuff. I mean, I am like, we are acting as their parents. And Florence Pugh grows up in a world where this is all she knows. These are her actual parents. She has no other frame of reference for reality. And the idea that to everyone else, it being fake is super interesting to me. The idea that David Harbour immediately is like, get me in the suit. This was so boring. I need to get back in this. Like, I'm a superhero. I don't need to do any more spy stuff. He doesn't even care that like his wife got shot or like his fake wife got shot and she's on the helicopter. He like doesn't really care about the kids. Like what he cares about is now the mission's over. Well, now the mission's over. Now my life can get back. But he's old enough to have like a frame of reference for like what a life is, and the idea that I think both of those things can exist. I think it can be a job for him and also be something that he actually enjoyed and took some solace in. And I think the dichotomy between those two is really interesting.
But I think you need to lock it in. So what my problem with it is that it's inconsistent on both ends of it right now. So in the flashback, it's inconsistent, and in the present, it's inconsistent. So I'm cool with that as long as in the flashback, when we see it, all of the behavior is all business. And then in the modern day, it's all business, but they're showing a little bit of weakness, like they did feel something. Or all of it in the flashback is very familial. And then in the present day, it's all business. None of that meant anything. I think you just need to lock it in a little bit clearer.
I think, but I feel like they did do that. I mean, I enjoyed this movie a little more than you guys did, I think. Maybe it was my expectations were lower and I was expecting. I just went in with no expectations. And the idea of them all starting off very fun and like they're all sitting at the table and she's teaching them about fireflies. And then the husband comes home and it's like, it's go time. And then they sit the girls down. It's like you get to get the stuff and they're on the run. It's like loving, but also very, I don't know. I don't know. You're right. It was a little choppy, but in hindsight, I think it's the most interesting. It's the only interesting thing about this movie. If we're really talking about the characters, right?
That's the part that I loved. Like, I want more of that. I want to know. And this is a lot. I know they have to pack a lot into just, a movie length worth. But like, I want to know more about what happened to Florence when she was younger and like her training and stuff. And I don't know. Maybe I expected the wrong things, I guess.
Let's get into some categories. I'm going to start with when did you know? When did you know that this was a Florence Pugh movie? Because without her, this is like, this is nothing. I mean, she's so good in this. She's so fun in this. She is the emotional center of the whole movie in a way that I don't think Black Widow was built to be. I don't know. What'd you guys think of her?
I mean, I thought she was great for sure. I think pretty much as soon as as soon as she showed up, I was like, oh yeah, based on this one fight scene, she's not going to be just like a side character. She's going to be pretty fucking central, which I'm completely okay with. I love Florence Pugh in this movie.
Me too.
The line from her of like the most important years of my life or whatever was all fake is so cool, and like kind of the synopsis of this whole family dynamic, right? Is like this thing that meant the world to me was not real and was just a job for you, and what that actually means, and if they actually are. I mean, I don't know. It sounds like you guys didn't love it.
No, I love that.
Like,
That's you're talking about all the stuff that I did like. Like that was like that's what I wanted more of. I want more of that stuff, that because that's what makes them who they are. So I just want more of that, and I think that's the problem, is that Natasha didn't have really any of that. But I'm glad that Florence had some of it. And I think for me, when I knew it was her, I had my suspicions knowing that the little girl was going to grow up to be Florence Pugh's character. The minute she's singing American Pie in the car, I was like, oh, this is going to be about her. She's too cute. Like, this is a flashback to see them both, but who are we really focusing on here? We're focusing on her. So she's the one that falls and scrapes her knee. She's the one singing in the car. Like, she's the one everybody wants to protect. So yeah, I had my hopes.
I know what I was focusing on in that opening scene, and I can't wait until the Black Widow prequel movie where we find out where young Scarlett Johansson got that blue hair dye.
I knew you were going to say that.
It's shocking we didn't see the dye, like the container out somewhere. It was crazy. I mean, the scene between Florence Pugh and David Harbour where they're like in the room together and he's like, we'll just sit. Like, that is amazing. And I just don't think that the Black Widow character is like capable of doing that scene.
Yeah,
like, she didn't have any real moments like that. It felt like she kind of talked to the mom, but her solo scene with the mom was all strategy on how to take down the Red Room. There wasn't any like, are you really my mom? Do you really care about me? She's just like, she really treated the whole thing like, I'm bigger than all of this. It felt like.
There was that scene where she was with Florence Pugh too, when they were sitting outside the cafe or whatever across from the auto garage. And Florence was like, oh, I know you're going to give me some big speech. And Scarlett Johansson just doesn't. I was like, oh, here we go. We're going to get some philosophy out of this. Like, we're going to get like a nice character moment that's going to showcase a little bit more depth. And she just kind of does one of the Scarlett Johansson Black Widow signature, like, I'm just going to say something kind of surface level and cute and do a little smirk afterwards. It's like, all right, well, that's disappointing because this is her movie.
I kind of wonder too, like going back to talking about like Scarlett and her role as an actor, like I feel like she's got to be so done. Like, she's probably been done for a long time. And I feel like this movie came up and where most people would be like, oh, finally, I get one to where I get to explore my character. Like, this is so long overdue. She was just like, oh, God, I just got to get through this and then I'll finally be done. Like, that's how I felt. I don't know if that's true, but that's how it came off. Like, she's not even going to premieres. I know we're under weird circumstances. I get it. But like, I've seen Florence going to like London premieres, and then it's like they cut to in the premiere a video feed pre-recorded of Scarlett Johansson being like, thanks for coming. And I don't know, she's pregnant. There could be a lot of other factors, but it's like, this is it. This is it. Like, I don't know. I feel like most people would be very excited and she just kind of seems over it.
Yeah, this is feasibly like the biggest project of her entire career. And it happens when we know her character's already dead and she is kind of, it seems like she's checked out for sure.
Yeah.
Did you guys have When Did You Knows?
I have one. So we were kind of talking about this. I'm curious if you had pinpointed it as well. When did you know that Taskmaster was Dreykov's daughter?
Oh, that was my When Did You Know?
It's a good When Did You Know? I guess I did. I guess I knew it when it was revealed. I don't think I really thought about it in advance. I liked it. I guess I was still kind of coming in like the Taskmaster is such an interesting character, right? And he has like memory he's like a human being. It's a guy. It's like a man who has a photographic or like a photokinetic memory. So he memorizes like movements and like the way people do things. but it comes at the expense of his short-term memory. So he doesn't even remember like who his family is and stuff like that. Like he just there's not enough space in his brain for like personal information. So he's constantly like forgetting who he is and like I don't know. The character is so interesting that I was like kind of excited to see that play out. And I guess I kept holding out hope that that's what it was, but I didn't hate it. I didn't hate that it was Dreykov's daughter. I thought it was okay. I thought it was fine. I really was just so excited to see more of Taskmaster, to be honest. I wasn't really even thinking about who it was. Every scene that Taskmaster showed up in and kicked butt, I was like, this is awesome. I need more Taskmaster. Give me more Taskmaster. I want to see Taskmaster doing like, I want to see her doing like Thor moves. I want to see her doing Iron Man stuff. I want to see her doing like literally every single thing. Like every scene that she shows up in should be like fight choreography taken from another movie, and just like that she should just be doing that constantly. And I loved that. Yeah.
Did I see her do a Black Panther move?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Okay.
she brought out the claws and then started like doing that stuff. They did the shield. They did Hawkeye. I mean,
There was a Spider-Man move in there too.
Was there
I
really?
missed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like one of the backflips or something off the truck.
Yeah, it was something. I don't know. I don't want to misquote it, but there was at least one Spider-Man move in there because I know they'd shown that one in the trailers.
I'm sure there's more. I'm sure there's more that I didn't even pick up on. But I was just so excited to see the Taskmaster. I honestly wasn't even thinking about like who it was, to be honest.
I was kind of in the same boat. Like I was aware that it was probably somebody, but I honestly didn't really care who it was. Like I just was like, what it's doing is cool. It's not going to matter to me really who it is.
I was genuinely like right when Taskmaster showed up, I was instantly thinking, I'm not going to get enough Taskmaster in this movie. I don't think I did. I genuinely don't think there was a good enough. There wasn't like an amazing fight scene with Taskmaster.
They could have done a lot more. I agree with you. They could have done more too with like, gosh, how do you defeat something like that? That like, and I would have liked to see, because I do think that's one of Black Widow's strengths that I always want to see more of. I like when she did it in Avengers when she's talking to Loki and she's like gets all the information from him and tricks him. Or like in the scene, I forget which movie, I think it's Avengers also, where she's tied up in the chair and she gets all that's the Black Widow stuff that I love, where she outsmarts them and gets them to tell her everything. So like, I would love to have had her figure out a way to get around that without having to just disable it, basically. That would have been really cool. But
well, because that's an empowering thing too, right? As we have this character that ostensibly, like we've talked about, is a normal person and is always compared as being weak compared to all the other like quote unquote big name Avengers, like Florence Pugh says. And then here we have a character that can do all of the moves of the other Avengers.
Yeah.
So in seeing Black Widow figure out a way to overcome this, ostensibly, we see how Black Widow could overcome any of the other Avengers.
or at least, it's like be toe to toe with them.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
really
guess they
good.
kind of did that later on when she like outsmarts the bad guy Dreykov. But it also was like, I didn't feel like it was as earned because it was just kind of really over the top with the face switching and stuff. Like that was just like a hair too unbelievable. And then but I mean it was cool, like the whole her having to like hit her head and stuff was intense, but again, you know, didn't pay off super well. And then I wanted it and we kind of got it, but I don't know, I don't think it was still executed as well as it could have been. Like
I feel like there was something potentially with, I've been watching a lot of video on the Black Widow because you're an Avenger. So I've seen all of the video of you fighting. You know who I haven't seen video of? The Red Russian. I haven't seen video of Florence Pugh. I haven't seen video of the mother character who's, I know it's Rachel
Melina.
Weisz. I don't remember her name in the movie, but
that's
it'd be
a good
cool if
point,
the
too.
family beat up the Taskmaster together.
Yeah, that's a good point too, where I don't feel like David Harbour's character really served that much of a purpose outside of comic relief.
That was going to be one of my that was an alternative when did you know?
Oh,
Was
really?
when did you know that the Red Russian was going to be absolutely useless in the fight?
Which he shouldn't be. He's so strong. I mean, that was the stuff I liked when they really well executed, like explaining him without being too exposition heavy. Like I loved how they show him in the beginning, like throwing a dumpster or something with ease. And it's like, okay, he's really strong. And then like the scene in the jail with him doing all the like arm wrestling. It was a fun way to show and like convey to us that he is exceptional. But then that honestly confused me after seeing ScarJo take so many hits, because I was like, is this movie going to try and tell us that, oh, wait, actually, she has taken a serum or something? Like for a minute, I was a little bit like, what is happening? But so they did really well with him, not so well with her.
It's a bummer we didn't get a cool Red Russian fight with Taskmaster.
Yeah,
especially because Taskmaster is ostensibly, again, just like maybe a slightly cybernetically enhanced person, whereas Red Guardian is like,
we could have seen the fight with Captain America through Taskmaster.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's so good. Holy shit. Fuck,
Dang.
that's really good.
That's really cool. Yeah.
But we did it.
God damn.
They laid all this like perfect groundwork and then didn't.
Oh my God. I think
Fuck,
Taskmaster
man.
like threw the shield once or whatever, but it didn't feel, you're right. That could have been like a whole moment. It could have been like whatever. I
Maybe
think that
maybe
fight
it's a
could have been
deleted
sweet.
scene.
They didn't really ever, they showed like Taskmaster watching fucking footage or whatever, but I don't think they didn't do a very good job of really hammering home the idea that Taskmaster can do any of the moves of anybody else we've ever seen, and can kind of like lock into, maybe even if they showed it in a way of like Taskmaster can lock into a certain person at a certain time and access all of that person's skill sets and everything. Because then, yeah, we get that payoff where it's like, if they'd really hammered that home and then Red Guardian had like kind of processed that in the moment, seen maybe the shield kick, they did the famous Captain America shield kick. If we really lock into that, yeah, holy shit, that'd be so rewarding to finally see that fight. Red Guardian had like classic, like incredible character introductions in this movie. Like, in my opinion, like perfectly screenwritten character introductions. Both times we see Red Guardian doing exactly what the character is going to be doing throughout the rest of the movie. Awesome. Especially the second introduction with the arm wrestling in the prison. So good.
Yeah, I guess that was our first clue that he's not the person we saw at the beginning.
But I mean, even so, it's like there's character growth there in that he's very embittered now and he's all fucking tatted up and in this prison he's got all these gold teeth and seems like he's been driven a little bit crazy, but still it's like, we never really saw it pay off.
And he sings American Pie. He admits he is ostensibly like the most removed person from the family. Like he cares about them the least, but then ultimately reveals like, you know, I do care and I do want them. God, the scene with him talking about their ledgers and how they're dripping with blood and how he's so proud of them for that was so funny. And it's especially
that was rewarding. I liked that.
Especially when Loki had like commented on how red Black Widow's ledger was before and how it's like a point of like, it's like definitely a shame of hers. And for her like father figure to be excited about it is so funny.
I like that. I think I would have appreciated a lot more if he hadn't literally said red in your ledgers, because it's like that's a little ham-fisted. We can say he's super proud of how many you've both killed so many people.
I liked it.
I didn't mind it. Yeah, I didn't mind it.
I thought it was fun. It's a little. You got to give. These are Marvel movies, Kevin.
It also bugged me. It like triggered me a little bit because that's exactly what I wanted to see. I wanted to see the red in her ledger. And then it's like, I guess we kind of are told, oh, she killed someone's daughter. That's the red in her ledger. But then they like undo it. So it doesn't even mean anything. So it's like they're so afraid to make her look bad in any way. And it's like, no, that's what makes her a turned spy. Like she has done some shit. And like, I want to know what that is so that I can appreciate her more now for turning and then what caused that turn.
Which is kind of funny too, because you go back and you watch Iron Man 1 and Tony Stark was a bad dude.
Yeah,
like
that's what I want. I want her to be awful. I want to see the shift. But oh well, she just has to be hot. That's it.
Yeah, she's very one-dimensional. I thought the Red Russian was awesome in this movie. I'm bummed we didn't get a fight. I do like the idea that this is like a women-driven movie and the idea of the only person with like superpowers in this is a guy who is like ultimately useless compared to like all those. I think that's cool. I think it was noticeable to me, and I thought it was like a neat message. But I think that he can lose to the Taskmaster in a good fight. I think they could have done more with it and still had him lose and still have Rachel Weisz like save his ass. Like,
absolutely.
I don't know.
What you said also made me wonder about something. I just had the thought about how like, and this is just more of a comment on like society and the way we view things, but like he pretty much proves that he's like, as far as a father goes, a piece of shit. Like the first thing he does when he shows up is ask about his reputation. Like he doesn't care about anything else, but then he wins us over again when he sings American Pie. And it's like, it's so true of like what we think of fathers is that they just have to show the bare minimum of affection. And we're like, wow, he really is such a good father. Whereas like on the mother side of it, like she is, you know, talking them through broke or skinned knees. She's like really being like the mother role. And she does come off kind of cold and stuff, but I don't know. What do you think? Is there a moment where we're like, wow, she's like a good mother in the same way? Or does she have to do more to prove her motherness more than he does? I don't know.
I don't know that I think she is really a good mother in this, because the part that we saw a little bit of, and I would like to have seen a little bit more clarity on, was like when she suffocates the pig. It was super fucked up.
I didn't love that.
And so like
super fucked up.
But I think that was probably, to show that she's not a mother, like she's a scientist. And so, maybe that, I don't know, but that made me so uncomfortable.
Oh God, I hated that. And the whole thing of like, I don't know if it was meant to be a laugh line or if it was meant to be like a fucked up character moment where she's like, you could have survived another 11 seconds. And it's just like, well, I don't know that I could have. I really hated seeing that pig.
I agree. I don't think that either of them are good parents. I don't think they're a good family. I think they're a shitty family. And I don't think the American Pie thing shows that he's a good dad. It just shows that actually meant something to him.
Yeah.
Whether or not he's a good dad is secondary to that. They definitely adhere to like some like traditional gender roles of like mom is like telling them to sit up straight and like do all this stuff. And then the dad's like, listen to your mother, like all this stuff. And then they're like, she's not my mom. You guys aren't my parents. Like, what is this? This is stupid. The scenes of them all at the table are very good. And even though Scarlett Johansson doesn't really do anything in them, she's
well,
just
that's
kind of
something. Yeah. Kevin had a comment on that I really agree with, about like them at the table and their dynamic.
Oh yeah. So Scarlett Johansson, her version of Black Widow throughout the other movies, I guess, has kind of been assigned the person with like the dry sense of humor that will comment on what's going on. And most of the time for me, it doesn't work. I hate the line in the first movie where Iron Man's like, I'm bringing the party to you. And she's like, I don't see how that's a party. I hate that line, but that's typical of what they've been giving her in these movies up to this point. And in Black Widow, they kind of gave every single character in her family that same sense of humor. So like Florence Pugh is going like, this would be a really cool way to die. This is a much less cool way to die. And Red Guardian's doing all kinds of quipping throughout the movie. Melina has that part where she's like, clearly I'm injured. And like that kind of like unrealistic quipping on top of everything. I mean, maybe it's consistent and it shows that everybody in the family had that same sense of humor or whatever, but I don't know.
But they did it better than her.
Yeah, true. I do almost like that. I think I do like the fact that the family has a similar sense of humor and that the family kind of gets each other in a weird way. Like, I don't think this is definitely not a good family unit, but they do have a connection, and everything they do that reemphasizes their connection is awesome. Like the playing with that connection is great, and it largely takes place outside of Scarlett Johansson. Okay, we've gone long. Should we get into some categories? I know we've touched on a lot of stuff already.
Yeah.
Beefs. Did anybody have any big beefs that you guys had beefs with? I would just say Scarlett Johansson in general, probably. But
I think I've aired most of my beefs.
Yeah, I have too. Mainly, that she didn't seem human.
Yeah.
Like physically human.
And personality wise, like just in a lot of ways, she didn't seem human. Very robotic, which, Colin Jost.
Yeah, I think that's partially Scarlett Johansson, and I also think it's partially like Marvel just not just giving up on her character. I think they've done the Black Widow a disservice, and they did not prioritize fleshing out her character in this movie. This was an introduction to Florence Pugh, I think.
Yeah. I wanted them to do, for reference, I wanted them to do what they did in WandaVision, where they, took a character in Wanda who we've seen but didn't really have too much yet. And then we got so much from her, and she's now one of my favorite characters. So that's what I was hoping would happen, and it didn't.
Weirdly enough, it kind of sounds like they're going to do a similar Black Widow, potentially phasing out with Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel 2 has been renamed The Marvels, and it's going to have Miss Marvel from the upcoming Disney Plus series in it, as well as Tanoia Paris as Photon or Captain Marvel from WandaVision, who I think already has a more compelling backstory than we were given for Carol Danvers. But
yeah,
I think that's just the fault of the first movie.
Carol Danvers is another two-dimensional character where it's like, it's a pilot who gets superpowers, and it's like, cool, okay. What else? Well, she doesn't remember her past. It's like, okay, was there like trauma in it? No. No, she was cool. No, she was cool. It's like, oh, she just doesn't remember how cool she was. Well, is she like not cool now? It's like, no, she's still cool. No, she's cool the whole time. She's always been cool.
Oh, that's so dead on.
There's no there's just, she doesn't have
she
her.
She doesn't have a struggle. What's her power? Just endless power. Cannot be defeated. Just, what's her kryptonite? Doesn't have one.
That's probably got to be hard to deal with mentally, doesn't it? Nah.
No, she's
sure
very confident in her ability
Turns out
to do
it's
this.
great.
Well, she struggles against the big bad, right? No. She handily defeats him. I would say effortlessly defeats the biggest demons in her past and life. Does she uncover some dark secret in her past? No, she meets new friends. She makes more friends. She discovers she had family. She had a loving support system the whole time. It's like, okay, cool. This feels much the same, where it's like, okay, Black Widow is just like very serious and not having fun, and it's like, okay, can she do that with her family? Yes. Is her family having fun? Yeah, they're having a great time. Is Black Widow having fun? No, she doesn't seem that interested in any of it. She doesn't seem like exploring any of this. Her past was traumatic. Are we going to see any of that? No, we're not going to see any of that part. You guys keep alluding to Budapest and all the horrible things that happened there. Are we going to see that? Like, kinda. We're going to mention it. And then there was a Black Widow Hawkeye movie that could have happened. And I mean, I wanted like a Captain America Falcon Winter Soldier movie for like forever. There was definitely a Black Widow Hawkeye movie, like Budapest prequel in there that could have been the Black Widow 1 movie or whatever.
That's what I wanted.
Oh, would have been sick.
Maybe we're going to get that in the show. Thieves. Who or what stole the show for you guys? We've kind of touched on that too.
Florence absolutely loved her. Oh my gosh.
Florence and David Harbour for me were just crushing it.
Yeah. Man, Red Guardian in this is such a missed opportunity because, again, such great introductions and then absolutely no payoff.
I loved his character. I loved everything he was doing. I wish there'd been a cooler fight with him, but
yeah.
It's great. Anything else Thieves wise? I liked the big set pieces. I agree with you guys that I don't know if they all made sense, but the fight on the ship falling apart in the air was awesome. It was so cool. I don't think I'd really seen that before. Some of those stunts were cool.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the pacing of the movie, honestly. It reminded me like Marvel has the movies down. They have the pacing down. I wasn't bored at all during this movie. It's like action. They have these arcs. There were a lot of moments where I'm like, oh yeah, there hasn't been a fight recently. And it's just because I'm enjoying spending time with Florence and David Harbour and Rachel Weisz, like hanging out and stuff. But it just made the TV shows seem that much more like flawed in a way of like, oh yeah, they don't know how to do a TV show. They're stretching out the wrong parts in these TV shows and stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Anything else, or should we wrap it up with some reckless speculation?
Let's wrap it up.
Ooh, okay. So what do you guys think is going to happen next? Is there anything else for Scarlett Johansson in Marvel?
No.
Yeah, I think she's out.
What happens with Florence Pugh?
I think, okay, so I am so devastated because all the characters that I'm starting to really, really love lately are getting like hints that they're going to go bad. And this happened to me with Game of Thrones when I loved Daenerys and then they just like flipped a switch and she was evil. And now I'm like, oh gosh, this is going to happen with Scarlet Witch. I love her so much. She's going to be evil. And now it's like, oh no, I love Florence Pugh's character so much. She's going to be evil. Like, so that's my thing is like, and maybe that's a clue. If I really like them, they're going to turn bad. What does that say about me? I don't know. Don't read into it.
I think that's very interesting because she's kind of joining Juliette Louis-Dreyfus's like team of bad guys, which so far only consists of U.S. Agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which that's kind of compelling because like they aren't bad, like black and white bad. So that's cool.
I think Florence Pugh is like way cooler than U.S. Agent strikes me as like a bad guy. I'm like, oh, you like murder people. You're like, you just seem my takeaway from that show was kind of like, oh, this is not a good guy. And Florence Pugh, I'm like, oh, I like Florence Pugh. I think she's a good person. I don't know. But you're right. I think maybe I'm not giving U.S. Agent enough credit. Like they are both anti-heroes in a way.
Yeah, I think, we're supposed to believe that, U.S. Agent just kind of had bad situations that he was dealt with and he handled them the wrong way. But at his core, he wasn't necessarily, he's not Captain America good, obviously, but he's human, so. Yeah.
It's interesting to think that there might be basically, I didn't see this happening when it was just, U.S. Agent, but I mean, theoretically, maybe we're seeing like the Thunderbolts that are being built out being like a dark mirror image of the original Avengers, because we have a Captain America allegory. We have a Black Widow allegory. I know people have been theorizing that the Abomination is going to be in there. We saw the Abomination again in the trailer for Shang-Chi. So who knows where the fuck that ends up going. But like there we have 3 of the 6 original Avengers, just kind of like darker versions of them and very like government sanctioned versions of them being put together. So I think that'll be kind of interesting. I wonder if they keep that going and we get like a variation on Hawkeye in there as well. I don't know what you do with that with like Iron Man.
What if it's literally Hawkeye and then Kate Bishop is the other side of it?
Shit. Yeah, that could work.
Or what if it's Taskmaster? What if Taskmaster gets in there?
Oh,
shit. Sick.
Oh, that would be cool.
Would be sick.
I'm curious about how they handle the like back and forth between the TV show and movies. Like, I think that Thunderbolts is really kind of being built up on like the TV shows. And I bet we're getting this like Thunderbolts TV show. I bet we're building like a TV exclusive Avengers.
They could literally call it either Dark Avengers or Secret Avengers, because both of those are like lines of Avengers comics they've had in the past. Dark Avengers was a bunch of villains masquerading as the original Avengers in their costumes. Secret Avengers was like basically a Black Ops Avengers team. So they could just skip Thunderbolts entirely and go straight to Dark Avengers.
I think that'd be sweet. I just want more Florence Pugh. I'm predicting just like an army of Black Widows showing up in something in the future.
Ooh,
I mean, we
cool
need
too.
to see Taskmaster again. I want to see Red. What is it? I keep saying Red Russian. Is it Red Guardian?
Red Guardian.
I don't think I ever get a name right on this podcast. I've listened back to some, and it's like, oh yeah, I could called Owen Wilson Morpheus for like a whole episode. Or I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. They're all, you guys get it, right? Like
Morpheus.
I want all these other characters to come back.
Now I'm just imagining you could take the red pill. Or wow, look, we got here a blue pill.
Neo, come on. Stop trying to hit me and hit me. Hey, I don't know about you. I say we see how deep this rabbit hole goes.
What if the TVA is just like part of the Matrix and they're just like, okay, cool. We just got unplugged. That's all you had to do, Loki. That's it for this episode. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us. It's always great to have you.
Thanks for having me. Oh my gosh, so much fun. Thank you.
Yeah, you're Nerdy for 30 royalty at this point.
Woohoo!
Done the most podcasts for sure.
You are our most frequent recurring guest.
Yeah, definitely.
You are our most frequent recurring guest.
Oh, wow. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's just because I'm the easiest to have around, but either way.
The reason is.
I don't know. It seems like your schedule's very hectic. Glad we got you today.
Yeah, me too.
anything you want to plug or anything?
Nah, just this show.
No, sweet. Plugging Nerdy for 30. Everybody keep listening. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.